there was a nurse sitting next to him, spoon-feeding him, because he didn't have the strength to lift up his own arm. And I walked over to him, and he looked at me and said, "Jace, I'm dying, you know." And all I could think to say was, "I know." And I walked out.
The proceeds from this show it goes to benefit the Missoula AIDS Council, which does do work in Missoula. There are people in Missoula who need our help. And I thank you all for coming and sharing your energy and your bucks. The first piece we have tonight, we're lucky enough to have Jace Loxo, who's a local entrepreneur, the owner of Crystal Theater and Video, which I'm sure most of you know really well. He's going to do a piece called Clutch Tricks.
When I was 15, I was in the hospital for one of several surgical procedures. And it was a children's hospital. All the kids there had various disabilities. Some had muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, scoliosis, birth defects, polio. And after I'd been there for about 4 weeks, this boy walked in. And I say he walked in, which was a bit unusual because most of us came there with some help. We either came in a wheelchair or on crutches, perhaps on a stretcher, some with a brace. And Jeff walked in. And I liked him right off. He was personable, and we shared the same birthday. It seems that Jeff was quite athletic. He was the star of his junior high school basketball team. And one day, during practice, he fell. And nobody could figure out why. And so he went through a battery of tests and visits to doctors. And finally, they figured out that he had cancer right here. And he had come to the hospital to have his leg taken off. And that wasn't all that much of a shock to us in the ward, because most of us had had some sort of disability for as long as we could remember, from perhaps birth or infancy. But I think Jeff had a harder time with it, because at 13, he was just getting a disability. And when he came back from surgery, we were shocked, because they took his leg off right up to here. It was as if he'd lost half of his body. Jeff was pretty popular, and because he lived in the town where the hospital was, he had lots of visitors. We had lots of visitors. Lots of girls. I remember Linda Powers. She was 15. She was beautiful. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. And she had this inner beauty. And she liked me. And we'd sneak off down the corridor, around the corner, by the elevator where the nurses couldn't see us from their little nurses station, eyeball mirror, and we'd kiss. French kiss, and we'd touch. Pretty hot stuff for 15-year-olds. And along about this time, Jeff started to get around a little bit on crutches. And in fact, he started to learn some interesting ways of walking on crutches. He learned some crutch tricks. Now there are several ways of walking with crutches. There's the swinging gait. the one-legged hop or the two-legged hop. But Jeff, because he was so athletic, learned a couple of interesting ways that he taught me. The first one was the no-legged walk. And the second was the no-legged hop. He could always do them better than I could. And about this time, I was transferred to another ward downstairs. It was called ADL, or Adjustment to Daily Living, which meant they gave us furloughs to go home on. And we went on field trips and things like that. And it was very nice to be able to get out of the hospital once in a while. And after I'd been down there for a couple of weeks, Jeff came down. He was transferred there. And I had never seen him happier. He'd just gotten an artificial leg. And he started to walk around on it and to try it out and practice it. And on the day that I was leaving, the very morning that I was leaving, he was walking down the corridor, and as it got to the end of the corridor to turn around, he fell again. And he had this funny look on his face. And I didn't think much of it because I was too excited, because I was going home that day. And I went home, and after I'd been home for several more weeks, perhaps a month, I was finally getting around quite well, still with crutches. And I had to go back to the hospital for a checkup. And while I was there, I recognized one of the nurses, and she asked me if I was going back upstairs to see the old gang. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, stop in and see Jeff. He's back upstairs. And when I got upstairs, and I walked into the room, my old room, I looked in and I saw him. He was in my old bed. And he was emaciated. He was like skin and bones. The cancer had spread. And there was a nurse sitting next to him, spoon-feeding him, because he didn't have the strength to lift up his own arm. And I walked over to him, and he looked at me and said, Jace, I'm dying, you know. And all I could think to say was, I know. And I walked out. I still use crutches to get around in the morning, to go downstairs and make a cup of coffee, read the paper, take a shower. And sometimes I still practice those little crutch tricks that Jeff taught. The no-legged walk, or the no-legged hop. And after all these years, I finally figured out what to say to Jeff. Jeff, I'm sorry. And goodbye. And sometimes I think about Linda Powers with her long blonde hair and her blue eyes and how she kissed me.
Thank you, James. The next piece is by Winnie Frank, and I've got a first when I got all involved in this speech, and I can't remember what her name is. And radical who has, oh, somebody's stronger than me.
Never done time.
I was listening to a program the other day, and on the program it said that the Bush administration right now is doing even less than the Reagan administration has done in the past for the AIDS crisis. And the song that I'm about to play, I hope it inspires you to write your Congress people so we can get something changed. I also heard a terrifying statistic the other day, that the number of people who have died of AIDS in America have surpassed the number of Americans that were killed in the Vietnam War. That number is about 74,000 right now. And I wonder how many of them died over.
here, the piece is dedicated to Mark W., whose smile roller skated into our lives, whose time with us was too brief, and whose passing was unjust. Never again.
Shit. So, I never thought I'd be sewing. Woman of the 80s, right? The now woman. I was the first girl in my class to burn my bra. I mean, not that anybody noticed or anything, but I always thought I was about as domestic as Arnold Schwarzenegger. I come from a long line of sewers, not to be confused with sewers. And I knew it was inevitable, but I fought it all the way. I remember my grandmother painstakingly trying to teach me how to sew. She would take the needle and hold my hand, and the rabbit comes up through the hole, and your rabbit comes down through the hole. And I just didn't get it. Well, probably because I just didn't want to get it. But next to me, the whole time, was my little brother, Marky. God, he ate that shit up. I can't. You know, he was whipping out clothes for his G.I. Joes and my Barbies. Bastard, spit on griddle, as my grandmother would say. I had the best dressed dolls on the block. It was Barbie Vogue all the way. Yeah, Marky was great. And later, I wanted one of those vests. You know, the kind in the 60s with all the love fringe. Well, I begged and pleaded and grumbled and cajoled and everything. And Mom and Grandma still said that those are just weird and only those hippie people wear those. Well, that didn't make it any better. So I kept on and I kept on. And finally Mom caved in. And she told me that if I wanted the vest bad enough, I could make it myself. Well, thanks a lot, Mom. So there I was. Marky somehow understood how badly I wanted to fit in. Because all my friends had it. Stupid ugly things. And he told me that he would help me make one. And very patiently, he did. Well, all right, Marky made the vest and I bitched about how bad sewing was. But those aren't the ends of my sewing troubles. Years later, I was engaged to Dave. Well, Dave the Drip, as Marky so fondly referred to him. Now, come on, ladies. You all have to admit there was one time in your life that man slithered into your background. And it didn't matter who he was. Could have been Adolf Hitler or Charles Manson if you talked to me, right? Well, that was Dave. Anyway, it was my birthday, and no, you don't need to know which one. And Dave and Marky were doing their usual dog and cat routine. And Dave was telling me that Marky was a dreamer, and they'd never gone on a mountain before. And Marky was telling me that Dave was akin to dog urine on a maggot-infested pile of camel dung. Rather eloquent, I thought. Well, at this time, Marky had a very successful business as a fashion designer. And he could have gotten me anything that I wanted for my birthday. But he gave me the most priceless gift. And that was a poem that he wrote, telling me how much he loved his big sister and how important our relationship was to him. It meant a lot to me. Like I said, somehow Marky always knew. Well, it came Dave's turn, and I was opening up his present. And I pulled out something that looked like a small wooden maraca. Well, I shook it, and it didn't make any noise. Cool, thank you for the lovely gift. And I, as politely as possible, turned to Dave, and I said, your maraca is defective. Did you keep your receipt? And Dave looked at me and said, it's not a maraca, and you're defective. It's a darning egg. And if you're going to be my wife, you had damn well better learn how to sew, darn my socks, because if I leave you, no man will have it. Well, I looked at Marky's poem, and I looked at the defective maraca. And I looked at Dave, and I said, darn your socks. Darn your socks. Damn your socks, and get your drippy damn ass out of my life, you worthless piece of shit. Well, Marky was ecstatic and cheered. I cried. Marky assured me there was no no great loss. I still cried. And later that night, he told me that I wasn't worthless, and that he wasn't worthless either, even though people tried to make him think that he was because he was gay. He hugged me and told me that he loved me. Then we both cried. Oh, what a night. God. He told me a quote by Mae West. Mae had said, "People tried to make me feel ashamed for the way I lived." And someone asked her, "Did you reform?" And she replied, "No, they were wrong. I'm not ashamed of it." Marky wasn't ashamed, and he never needed to be. Some ignorant people say that he loved wrong. Well, I say he loved. See, a month ago, my little brother Marky died of AIDS. He was only 30. And this time I'm sewing for him. I'm sewing his piece on the AIDS quilt, so he won't be forgotten. That's too bad for a beginner, huh, Marky?
February 9th, 1989. Dear Dale, when I think about AIDS in Montana, many images come to mind. The first, of course, is Richard. When he was diagnosed in June 1986, his was the first case to be diagnosed in Missoula County. It made the daily papers. No names were mentioned, fortunately. We expected the house to be firebombed. This is, after all, the town where the mayor asked the city attorney to ban a gay dance because gay people would bring AIDS to town. The local gay rights group, out in Montana, had just started an AIDS support network, anticipating a future need. We didn't tell them of the diagnosis because we didn't have the strength to deal with both the disease and their ignorance. So we stuck it out alone, just the two of us. Richard asked me not to talk to anyone about his diagnosis, nor would he talk to me about his weekly conversations with his doctor. So for the first 3 months, I was completely alone. Missoula is a small town, even if it is Montana's third largest community. Word got out, and people called to offer condolences. I told them that while the situation was indeed difficult, it was basically no different than watching a loved one dying of cancer or some other fatal disease. I felt I had to reassure them because of all the ignorance about AIDS. It took Richard a year and a half to die. We both learned a lot during that period. As time went on, we taught others a great deal also. I did things I never dreamt I would do. I learned to give hypodermic injections. I learned to handle syringes and needles, subclavials, whatever they were. I'd never heard of them. IV bottles. I'd never expected to become a nurse. When Richard died, I was told to prepare his obituary myself, unless I wanted the mortuary to do it for me. Since I had no control over what the mortuary would say, I wrote the thing myself, the morning after he died. When I turned it into the paper, it caused quite a stir. They wanted to interview me, and they didn't want to say that he was survived by his lover. We finally compromised on a less loaded term, life partner, and I agreed to an interview. The interview appeared on the front page of the paper, complete with a picture of Richard, Thursday morning. Richard died Tuesday night. They didn't waste any time. Within 2 weeks, the article had appeared in every daily paper in the state of Montana. Again, I expected the house to be firebombed. That didn't happen. What did happen was amazing. I received cards, letters, and phone calls from friends, of course, but also from complete strangers scattered across our state. And even from out of the state. A woman from Phoenix saw the article in the Billings Gazette and sent it to me. A man read it in the Bozeman Chronicle and called me. An elderly neighbor called to offer love and support. Two people called the president of the university and demanded that I be fired. I wasn't. The house was not firebombed. After Richard's death, a support group was formed that met with the counselor on a weekly basis. I attended the meetings, even though I no longer fit the criteria for attendance. That is, seropositive test result, AIDS or ARC diagnosis, partner, spouse, lover of either, which assumes that the partner was still alive, or a current caregiver. Our group of 10 quickly dwindled to a group of 3, the counselor, a young man with KS, and me. Once again, I was being a support, but not getting much support. At the end of the year, when that young man died, I ceased all involvement with AIDS work. I have to heal myself and see no outside help available. The truth of the matter is, if you want to be involved in AIDS work, even in Montana, there are more than enough sick people who need your help. Little time is available for those who are physically well, but emotionally drained. Other aspects come to mind, though. The wonderful lesbian who has been at the bedside of nearly every man who died of AIDS in Missoula. She too is burning out, and I hope she can find her own strength again. The population in Montana is small enough that we know each other. We've been friends, family for years, and now we watch our brothers die. We also see others coming home. Men who left Montana at 20, full of health and energy, are returning at 40 to die. The truth is, those of us born and raised in this state will always be Montanans, wherever we end up. Perhaps half the cases of AIDS treated in Montana were diagnosed elsewhere, in San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, Portland, Chicago. This has other implications as well. A friend from Bozeman died last Saturday in San Francisco. I was told by long distance from Washington, D.C., and I was asked to pass the word along to other friends. So I called Seattle, Portland, even San Francisco, because so many gay Montanans leave the state, and David's friends were no exception. AIDS in Montana. The contrasts under the big sky are amazing. A gay man with AIDS in Great Falls has to see a dentist in Helena because no Great Falls dentist will work with him. A Missoula man died recently in a Billings nursing home because no Missoula nursing home would take him. The Billings AIDS Support Network passes out condoms and safe sex brochures to prostitutes on the street corners. The health department's test site in Havre tests more IV drug users than all the other test sites in the state combined. Medical personnel state that Montana fits the third world scenario for AIDS distribution, that is, heterosexual transmission. No one's quite sure what this means because the official figures don't seem to back it up. Maybe it's their own homophobia coming out. Montana is the only state in the region that does not require reporting of names of those testing seropositive. As a consequence, our test sites serve North and South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, and even Washington residents. State health officials fear that the legislature will change our unique regional standing. Well, I fear that I've rambled enough. Thanks for asking.
I had my AIDS test. I have a letter too. It's a letter from a friend of mine who's living in Arc. He moved with his partner to Seattle because there were more support groups in Seattle. I had a baby this year, and I started working 3 weeks after she was born, and I got really tired. And I sent him a picture of the baby and told him I was tired. And what a beautiful baby. And she looks so much like you. Congratulations. It sounds as if you are overextending yourself. I hope you are taking some time out for you. Now that I am learning that it is okay to love myself, with that love comes the understanding how important it is to take time out for me. I have started a new job. I am managing a showroom in Seattle. The job requires a lot of skills I didn't know I had in me. I have decided to go on with growth instead of just hanging out and being a victim. So far it's working. I took my test because I couldn't bear not having the courage to take my test when my friend had the courage to live in Arc. We love you very much. This piece is by Aaron Lindbergh. It's a song. It's a country western love song in French. Erin has traveled all over the world, and she wrote this song on the back of a camel crossing the Sahara.
Le vent du nord, il descendra. Tu m'as laissé toute seule sous les draps. Le vent du nord, il souffle sur moi. L'été et printemps ne sont plus là. Je reste au lit, je n'ai plus d'esprit. Depuis toi, tu es parti. Et si jamais je rêve que de toi. Et quand je m'enlève, ma chambre est froide. Pourquoi tu ne vas plus à mon port? Je ne veux pas d'eau. Dis donc, chérie, je suis presque mort. Et si tu me laisses comme ça, je reste comme ça. Avant que je prenne ma dernière respiration, donne-moi mon libération. Et si jamais je rêve que de toi. Et quand je m'enlève, ma chambre est froide. Le vent du nord, il descendra. Tu m'as laissé toute seule sous les draps. Tu
the founder and director of the cabaret series in Missoula, acting teacher at the University of Montana, father of 2 carpenter all-around interesting gentlemen. He performs with a creature he created called an outer air instrument.
Hi. The following list of conceptualizations or meanings was taken chiefly from printed sources published since 1981. AIDS is an untreatable, irreversible, and invariably fatal infectious disease that threatens to wipe out the whole world. AIDS is a creation of the media, which has sensationalized a minor health problem for its own profit and pleasure. AIDS is a creation of the state to legitimatize widespread invasion of people's private lives and sexual practices. AIDS is a creation of biomedical scientists and the Centers for Disease Control to generate funding for its activities. AIDS is a gay plague, probably emanating from San Francisco. AIDS is no longer a fairy tale. AIDS is the crucible in which the field of immunology will be tested. AIDS is the most extraordinary medical chronicle of our times. AIDS is a condemnation to celibacy or death. AIDS is an Andromeda strain with the transmission efficiency of the common cold. AIDS is an imperialist plot to destroy the third world. AIDS is a fascist plot to destroy homosexuals. AIDS is a CIA plot to destroy subversives. AIDS is a Soviet plot to destroy capitalists. AIDS is a capitalist plot to create new markets for pharmaceutical products. AIDS is the result of experimental tests on the immunological systems of men not likely to reproduce. AIDS is the result of genetic mutations caused by mixed marriages. AIDS is the result of moral decay and a major force destroying the Boy Scouts. AIDS is a plague stored in King Tut's tomb and unleashed when the Tut exhibit toured the U.S. in 1970s. AIDS is the perfect emblem for 20th century decadence, for fin de siècle decadence, for postmodern decadence. AIDS is a disease that turns fruits into vegetables. AIDS is a disease introduced by aliens in order to weaken us before the takeover. AIDS is nature's way of cleaning house. AIDS is America's ideal death sentence. AIDS is an infectious agent that suppresses our immunity from guilt. AIDS is a spiritual force that is creatively disrupting civilization. AIDS is God's punishment of our weaknesses. AIDS is God's test of our strengths. AIDS is a sign that the end of the world is near at hand. AIDS is the price paid for the 60s. AIDS is the price paid for anal intercourse. AIDS is the price paid for genetic inferiority and male aggression. AIDS is absolutely unique with no medical precedent. AIDS is just another venereal disease. AIDS is the most urgent and complex health problem facing the world today. AIDS is a golden opportunity for medicine and science. AIDS is science fiction. AIDS is stranger than science fiction. AIDS is a terrible and expensive way to die. pity. Community. The gay community, the heterosexual community, the bisexual, gay community. As if every gay person can belong to one community, as if every heterosexual general population. Moral majority. Risk. Young adults, the fastest rising risk. Behaviors. The gay community. The heterosexual community. Patient zero, all the bisexual population. Penetration is penetration. Penetration is penetration. This is good for you. Risk practice. Risk practice. The general population. AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. AIDS is a disease. AIDS is not a disease. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Syndrome, disease. It's not just semantics. Diseases are contagious. Diseases are communicable. Syndromes aren't. AIDS test. People with HIV might get AIDS. AIDS test. What's the simple, casual job? The causal linkage. AIDS test, HIV. People with AIDS are not victims. Innocent victims. Innocent victims are victims. A poor child is another innocent victim of a victim. Victims are helpless. People with AIDS are not. Cystis cardiac pneumonia, tuberculosis, cytomegalovirus. These are diseases. Opportunistic infections. Risk group. Young adults is the fastest growing population. Risk group. Risk practice.
Missoula.